Hello, welcome back to the HCCTV Student Lounge. This is a show done by HCC students for HCC students to give your opinions in news, entertainment, and what's going on in our school. Hi, Carolina, how are you today?
Hey, Kyle, it's so good to see you again. We're also joined today by Josh, Chaz, and Eric. And we will also have a very special guest, Ashley Hope, who is here to talk about the HCC Art Car Ambulance. But first, let's move into our interesting fact. So first, if you didn't know, there is a Cadillac Ranch. It's built by a local millionaire, Stanley Marsh III, and it's easily one of the Texas' most recognizable attractions. 11 rusted, gutted out Cadillacs are lined up and photogenically planted hood first in the dirt. And they have so many colors. It's so fun to go over there. So if you want a cool picture, you can visit this place. It's in Amarillo. And we'll provide the link over here so you can visit and check out the address, the exact address. Now, there's also a Creation Museum. And this is very interesting because the Creation Museum is a Christian evangelistic outreach of answers in the Genesis. And it also has a very interesting attraction. It's called the Ark Encounter. And this brings to life the Ark of Noah's day and equips visitors to understand the reality of the events that were recorded in the book of the Genesis. So check it out. And lastly, over here in Houston, we have the Buffalo Bayou Park Cistern. And it's very close to downtown. It's located at the Waterworks at 105 Sabine Street. And the Buffalo Bayou Cistern is an underground former water reservoir in the Buffalo Bayou Park. So if you've been there, you're very close, you're just on top of it. And it's now open for history and art tours. So you have to reserve those. So check out the website at buffalobayou.org. But now let's begin our first topic, which makes way to a great discussion. So tell us about your experience with cars. Well, in my case, as most of you know, I've been here 7 years. So when I got here from Colombia, it was very interesting to get to learn the regulations of driving over here. And I wasn't even driving over there in Colombia. So the first time I learned how to drive, it was over here. And what was very different for me learning about is we don't have the highways that are over here. So the speed limit was one of those things that I was so surprised. People have to drive really fast. And if you're driving slowly, you must have to use the very right lane. And also the freeway, the cars should stay on the right, like I said, and the left lane is for passing only. So there's so many things, or the stop sign, we have the stop sign, but since we're not driving that fast, we don't have to stop completely. So we kind of check out like if someone's crossing the intersection and we go. But over here, it's like you have to take your time, stop completely the car, and then you pass. So that was very interesting to learn about. And I like it even more here because it's very, it's a lot of, it helps a lot with accidents. So I highly recommend that you learn those regulations over here. And you are going to be able to drive everywhere if you know those things. So it's very fascinating. What about you, Kyle?
You saying that reminds me from Brazil. It's the same thing. When I moved here, I could notice the difference when you're driving and how people drive too. And people in Brazil are crazy, like, oh my God. And one thing too that was surprising for me was I actually started driving in Brazil. So I got my driver's license in there. And when I moved here, I found out that you could use your own car on the exam here when you're trying to get your driver's license. And in Brazil, you got to use the auto school car, which is a standard car. That means like a stick car. So you don't even can drive an automatic car. And that made so much harder when I was in Brazil. Like it was so harder to learn, but I got it. And when I moved here and I realized like, really? So I've seen people with those little tiny cars doing the parallel parking. It's like, that's so easy. Like, it's so funny how you guys can do that here, but it is what it is. So, but I would like to share something else too. So when I moved here in 2014, I actually went to the Houston Auto Show, which is a really, really cool place. If you love cars, you need to go check it out because they have the most like incredible vehicles that are coming this year. And I got an opportunity to drive a Corvette when I was there. So I wait in line for like, I don't know, like 30 minutes. And they let me drive a Corvette around the Energy Park. And it was such like an incredible feeling to be inside of such a powerful car. And when we got it to the street, he said, hit it. I was like, what do you mean hit it? And I just pressed the gas, and then literally like my whole body did like this. And I had a little piece of paper that was in the dashboard, and the paper just flew all the way to the back so fast that I went. And I was like, oh my God, it feels so good. So now I understand why people spend so much money with those cars, because it is such a great feeling to have such a powerful machine on your hands. So that's my story for today. So who is next?
Thanks, Kaio. I actually have I have like the opposite experience from you guys because I learned to drive here. And then right now for work, my dad is in Colombia, where Carolina's from. And they hate driving over there. Pretty much, they're in Bogota, which if Carolina's ever been there, she knows how bad the roads can be. It's like New York, where everything is like, everyone's trying to cut everyone off all the time. It's crazy. But also it's on a mountain. So there's like a 3D element where the roads are going up, to, and down. And I don't think I've ever feared for my life as much as I have on some of the taxis that I've been in Colombia, because oh my God, sometimes it's some Fast and Furious, like I just like dashed through 3 cars. I'm like, what are we doing? But one of the problems with cars, one of the things we have here is we always got to talk to our local representatives, because if we don't help our infrastructure be better, then our cars, they kind of have to stay in the garage, because if there's nothing but potholes and the roads are broken, you can't really drive through that. You're gonna, destroy your car. And as everyone knows, they're really expensive. So just, reminding everyone to get out there whenever they see, especially their local stuff, vote for someone who can help keep our roads, safely maintained.
Very interesting, Charles. I want to talk about the art of filmmaking and how cars relate to filmmaking. When we think about movies, we'll think about how cars are integrated into them. A lot of filmmakers, like particularly director Michael Bay, do movies with cars where they will put their cameras in cars to make it look like the actor is next to the car. Kind of strange. In some of his movies, he has what's called a vehicle called the Bay Bomber, where he puts all these cameras on a car, and it has a big cage around it, and you can actually drive it around. And when there's an action sequence, you can actually have a car crash into it. So it looks like the audience is kind of eating the action. It's one of the best things they have in filmmaking. It's a good way to kind of film with cars. Outside of action movies, we have the dramas where you have someone sitting in a car. Usually they're on called a sound stage, and they're actually in a car that's cut in half. That way the cameramen can still have their cameras on the actors. And you have stuff like, cars that are next to blue screens and green screens, and the big science fiction movies seem like they're either flying or being teleported somewhere. There's a lot of different techniques in filmmaking that you can actually do with cars. You've seen the Fast and the Furious movies or Death Race. You use stuntmen or stunt coordinators to properly rig cars to either explode or do backflips. Usually they're on wires or they have to control explosions. But cars have been around in filmmaking, used whether it's visual effects or practical effects for many years now. Actually, it's a good industry if you want to work in. They have classes for that in Los Angeles if you want to work in stunts regarding cars. But that's my idea on filmmaking and cars.
That is great, Eric. Well, now that we're here from our crew, let's move into our week's guest. So who do you have for today, Kaio?
Today I have a really, really special guest. I've been with so many interviews with her, and I just love to talk to her. It's Ashley Hope. She's a visual arts professor at HCC. How are you today, Ashley?
Good. How are you, Kaio?
I'm doing good. So were you able to rest after this big project that you worked on?
Not really, because right after the big project, I did 7 days in Disney. And if anyone ever has gone to Disney, it's an excruciating feat of athleticism to do 5 parks in 6 days. But I did it, and no one was expecting me to come through on anything, so it was much easier psychologically.
Yeah, I can imagine being to Disney. I don't know how tired you can get, but at the same time, so much fun. So let's tell people what is the project that we're talking about. So what is the Art Car project?
So you guys were talking about like experience on cars, and I just have to mention as the art car teacher that I grew up, mid-teens to early 30s in New York City, where cars went by me, but that's the only experience I ever had with a car. I was such a subway girl. And when I moved to Houston, they were like, so you have to actually use your license. You have to drive. And I got my license. I am the worst driver ever. All my passengers are like white knuckling it because I drive with the knowledge of a 16-year-old who just got her license, but with like the confidence of a 44-year-old. So it's actually, my experience with cars has been a defining feature of my move to Houston. Okay, but I was the leader of the art car project, even though I knew nothing about cars. And it was essentially where they brought an artist into a maker space that usually supports STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, to make it a STEAM space, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And it was just a class that ran multiple semesters over 3 years where we made art cars using a multidisciplinary space and all the disciplines across Houston Community College, and we just made them up. Our project was, designed in the moment, in the semester with those students. It wasn't like there was a lot of planning other than goal, make an art car, and that's the project, like a class.
And honestly turned out like amazing. And I'm a little biased because I've seen the whole process, but it's still like, you're gonna talk about that like with the
Did you document the bicycle year too?
No, unfortunately I was not there, but I've seen the footage from it. It looks really cool.
Yeah, I think Nathan from HCCTV documented the bicycles, but that was our first year where we knew we were going to get an ambulance. And I was like, look, I'm not going to go get a jalopy of a Honda right now if we know an ambulance is coming and we didn't know when. So we collaborated with this place that gives bicycles to refugees, so they have transportation to go. It's called Free Wheels Houston, and they donated us bikes. They also had to teach me how bikes work, because like cars and bikes, like if it's not the subway, I don't know how it moves. So they gave us these bikes, and our students designed kind of fantastical bikes with like Ferris wheels that spin on top, or wings and propellers, and we chopped up the bikes and welded them together. And that was our first year. And that was the first, when I started this class, I didn't really know that I could pull off what I was saying I could pull off. And I just did it as I always work, where I make sure, that I come up with a plan and a map, and I build all the parts, and then we assemble them together. And because the bikes were all kind of built separately, like little pieces, everyone kept saying to me, like, so are you guys going to build these bikes? Like, you have 2 months. Hey, are you going to build those bikes? You have like a month. But right at the end, I assemble all the parts. And so suddenly 1 week, there's the bikes. And that's when I think I knew that I could do this at the ambition level that I wanted, and that I could get the students working at that level too. But also I think it's when other people were like, oh, you know what, she can do it. Like, let's support her. She can do this. So that was really nice. So the bicycle year was important for both like confidence and, location, facilities, trusting me.
Yeah, I can't imagine just the amount of work to do, and kind of organizing the team, trying to figure out which person does what exactly, what they want to do, what they're good at. So you need to really think about that to try to use the best people for the best service or whatever you need to construct. So and I would like to know, based on that too, like, what was your biggest challenge when you come to creating a car like this?
I think that I'm going to put COVID aside, because in general, it was incredibly hard to build an art car in a virtual situation with students and collaborators. And that ended up just me looking at the car, devising what I could do with maybe a staff member helping me paint. Because we had finished the body of the car largely before COVID hit, like all the aluminum was cut and mounted, the doors were off, like it was even primed and partly painted, you know. So we were pretty good. So I could just paint it. And then we figured out that all the parts on the ambulance that were going to go home with the students, I would drive all over Houston. I'm talking about sometimes it was an hour and 15-minute drive to a student's house to sit in their driveway and to teach them their one component for the car. And then we would, you know, mount it at a later date. So that, like the bicycles, the ambulance suddenly whoop, like came together in the last 6 weeks because we gathered all those parts. So that in itself, having confidence that was going to happen was a major challenge. But that's a unique COVID challenge, so I'm going to put that one aside. I would say the biggest challenge, more than, you know, the wobbling of my own confidence, was managing a team of students from different demographics, different economic classes, different workforce versus academic. I mean, you name it. And it was actually much harder in the beginning. By the end, I think students were coming in each semester knowing that magic happened the last semester, so it was smoother. But those first semesters where I was introducing these 4 or 5 students, sitting them at a table and saying, hey, I don't know if you guys would ever have hung out in any other situation, but here we are. This is going to be an intimate situation, and you guys are going to be good friends. And to negotiate that building of trust and kind of steering conversation or you know, interrupting a conversation that's going badly without them knowing I've shifted, that social element in the beginning was a huge learning lesson for me, and I think a learning lesson for kids who are like, wow, I never would have, the geologist, the sociologist, and the welder, and the machinist, and the artist all hanging out. How do you massage that situation into a productive one? And then I think you mentioned this, but assigning or figuring out what each person's strength is and being like, hey, this is your strength. I know you want to do this other thing, but that's Yesenia's strength. This is yours, and I need you to do what you do well. Was a big one, and that was a lesson learned. I think I learned that in musical theater. Woohoo! For all the people who love musical theater, but the idea that there's, like, you know, the dancers, the singers, and, you know, and you all work together. And I think the major one for any artist whose job usually is super independent, I make my art and you can't touch it, like, this is my gift to the world. I had to be like, okay, Yesenia, you're gonna do this. I'm gonna walk away now and hope that you do that and you finish it. And sometimes I walked away, and like Michaela Smith, I walked away and I was like, I just gave her the impossible task, whatever, I'll figure out when she doesn't come through what I'm gonna do. Well, guess who came through, you know? And that was amazing. And sometimes I had to, like, say, hey, you didn't come through, but let's see if we can solve this quickly here and now with me as your peer beside you. Those were the hard things. I know there was a long list, right? There's even more, but I'm not going to tell you what the...
Yeah, I honestly, for me, the hardest moment was to take the ambulance out of the place. Because,
yeah, that was only like half a day, but it was...
Yeah, I was there, like, you know, I even helped, you know, but that was so stressful. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Can I just tell them what that was? So I built an ambulance. Okay, so we squeezed in the ambulance with like 2 inches when we got it into the space. And I knew that what I was building wasn't going to fit out of the space. I just was compelled to build it. And I was like, we're just going to have to deal with like getting it out when I don't know what's going to happen. And so Kaio arrives and I was like, well, maybe we're going to get out and this is going to be 15 minutes, but maybe we just don't get it out at all. And I have to cut it up and I don't know. And it took like 2 hours and 45 minutes. And finally we put this ginormous, like 9,000-pound ambulance on casters and pushed it out with our hands. And you just heard the thing that like I had built that wouldn't fit through the door, just scrape and go boing, 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 as it freed itself. And we were good. Like suddenly my 2 years could actually leave the building, you know, but yeah. Thanks for being there, Kaio. I saw that you were very dubious.
We made it. We made it. Oh, God. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the car itself. So first of all, what's the name of the car? And why did you give that name for the car?
The name of the car is terra firma, which means solid ground. Some people think higher ground. And just the idea that you can go from instability to a good place, a solid place to stand. And that came from our general theme, which was about how HCC offers people, students and faculty, certainly for me too, who came from New York in our early 30s and had to reinvent, like a second chance, a story that they didn't know was going to end well, an opportunity they thought they had lost. I remember someone saying to me, well, I just really squandered my 20s and I thought, like, that's it. My story's going to end bad. But HCC allowed me to reinvent in my 30s. And so it was coming out of Harvey, and everyone was incredibly frazzled and kind of scared and didn't have any ground to stand on. And we came up with this idea of building an ambulance like HCC coming to the rescue, offering Houston, firm ground to stand on, terra firma.
I love this name. It's even like in Portuguese too, terra firme. Like you can even kind of translate to that too, which is pretty cool.
Latin.
Like, yeah, it's so fancy. So, and now we're about to run out of time, but there's something that I really want to talk about. It's like what prize or awards the car won, because I saw the article and that was pretty impressive. I wanted people to know how much work you guys put into it and what you guys got it for. So
our bikes won grand trophy of the non-motorized vehicles. Like we just showed up and won grand trophy. And I remember them saying to me, oh, you can only win one award. You would have won performance and contraption, meaning like mechanisms that spin and do stuff, but you only get one award. So I was like, okay. And so they weren't going to have grand trophies this time because the parade was slightly different. And I was sad. They were like, there are only going to be 3: People's Choice, art car artist choice, and judge's choice. And when we won judge's choice first, I thought there was still the only, like, you only get one award. It goes to other people. And I was like, well, that's okay. Judges know what they're doing, right? So we won the best award. And then the second time for People's Choice, they were like, and Terra Firma wins. And I looked around and I was like, who's Tara? And then I realized it was us. And I was like, oh, and I was super honored. And then when the third award came and they called our Terra Firma for HCC, I was like, oh, this is better than a grand trophy, because I could only win one grand trophy, but we swept all 3 awards. And we're invited to be, the City of Bel Air just invited me to bring the car, and HCC to bring the car to its Independence Day parade. So like HCC will be out there, and that's the biggest reward. Like we did it to be like HCC,
That's so cool, and I'm so proud of everybody from HCC, from you, and I've, as I mentioned, I've been there since the beginning, and I saw how much work everybody put into it. So it's so cool to see. And before we close up, I said that already, but I want to ask you about the event, because I think that was a really cool event with live music and the kids checking the ambulance. So I wanted you to share your experience when you were there.
It was amazing. Me and one of the students were there from top to bottom. We arrived, in the AM and we closed it out in the PM. And we just saw how that event serves Houston. Like there was like kids climbing all over the ambulance who like, and then every age group, because there were these memory dioramas of people growing up, like our art car related to every age group of Houston that came through. And so we could talk to them. But then you slowly saw the event each night turn into like this giant party, like Burning Man or like a rave. And it was just really fun. And it was super rewarding socially for me and that student who just stayed the whole time, because I made friends, like real friends, because they're like, you're here. Is this like the 72nd hour that you're here? And I was like, yep. And like we were friends.
Yeah, I enjoy a lot the events, and being a filmmaker sometimes give you the opportunity to be in such like unique events. And I check all the cars, I saw everything, I met new people too, and it was literally an experience. And I was so happy that HCC was able to make part of that. And I'm looking forward for next year. I know you're probably still tired. I don't know if you're planning on your big project, but I think we got it. We got to do it because we're doing really good.
Oh yeah, at the event, I would say answered 5 times an hour. Can I join the next art car class? When is that? Can you notify me? And I was just like, I'm tired, but I think maybe every 3 years we'll look into it.
Awesome. All right, Ashley, thank you so much for being here. This is a really cool interview. And again, and for you guys that are watching right now, we're actually going to do a documentary about the whole thing. So watch out for that. We don't have the dates yet, but that's something that we're going to be working close together. And I know it's going to be good because I shot a lot of the stuff and I'm going to add it. So be ready for it. All right. Thank you, Ashley.
Fascinating to hear. Thank you so much for your time. And as you know, we also cover things that are entertaining to watch. So what shows are out that you want to talk to us about, guys?
So I want to talk about Fast and Furious. And one thing with that, it's because it's a movie that started a long time ago. I don't even remember when they released the first one. I remember I was a kid when I was watching the first one. And for me, that was so incredible because I always like cars, speed, action, everything mixed all together. And it's impressive how they have 9 movies so far. That's like, like not even Harry Potter has so many movies. So it's incredible how far they went. And one thing that I would like to talk about the movie, it's on the 7 movie, they actually have one of the actors, he died, that's Paul Walker. And he actually died in a real car crash, nothing related with the movie. He was driving a car and he crashed and he caught on fire. And in order to finish the movie, they actually use his brother as an actor and they create with CGI his face. So you're not really seeing the real Paul Walker, but you can hear his voice, you can see his face. And I think this is so crazy and scary at the same time, how far the technology has evolved. But again, it's still a really good movie. And he may even come back on the 9th movie. I don't want to give spoilers. I saw some stuff on the internet. I don't know if it's true. So
I want to mention the movie Ghost Rider from 2007. It was directed by Mark Steven Johnson. It's basically about a stunt cyclist who's basically very famous for doing stunt cycle events. He ends up becoming a hell spawn for the devil, and his vehicle or his motorcycle that he uses in the stunt shows, his terminal is called a hell cycle. So he's called the Ghost Rider for a reason. He drives his motorcycle or his hell cycle around the city, fighting any type of being from hell that escapes through his deal with the devil. It's rated PG-13. It could have been an R, in my opinion, if they did a little more serious and darker. But it's on the same level as Constantine, even a little bit on the same level as Blade. But it's a very interesting movie. You're into like supernatural stuff or dark fantasy type stuff, the way I am. I think that you would like it. So again, it's called The Ghost Rider. Came out in 2007.
That's really cool. I'm also a big fan of the Ghost Rider comics, especially the ones later on. There's even one who actually drives a car. But actually, I want to talk about a show called Motor City. In the future of Detroit, a new city like built literally above Detroit called the Detroit Deluxe gets built. And essentially all of people's freedoms here are being limited, even the ability to drive like your own car. And it's about essentially a group of teenagers called the Burners, and they're all driving their own like souped up vehicles in the old Detroit, and essentially trying to stop the leader of Detroit Deluxe from taking over everything.
One of my favorite TV shows to watch growing up was MTV's Pimp My Ride. All over the place, and while I know the show was definitely exaggerated, it was kind of just fun to watch as a kid, seeing all these like wild cars show up. They would be painted all kinds of cool colors, and it was something a kid would dream up. It was a kid's paradise. Now, if you've ever seen the meme of the guy going like, "Yo dog, I heard you like X, so I put an X in your Y so you can verb while you verb," that's actually Exhibit, and that's where the meme comes from. So it's just kind of ties it all together, and I just really like Pimp My Ride.
Thank you very much, guys. So it's the time of the day to say goodbye, and as always, stick to the end because we have the funny video or the meme of the week. I see you next time.
Also, don't forget to send us your opinion and send us topics that you would like to discuss, and we'll see you next time on the Student Lounge.